r/Askreddit. Doctors and nurses have read it. What self-diagnosis of a patient surprisingly turned out to be right. Not a doctor or nurse but a patient. I was having a kidney stone and my boyfriend at the time took me to the ER. The nurse kept asking me what I did to myself because I was practically screaming in pain. Through tears I managed to get out it's a kidney stone. I then sat in the waiting room practically passing out until my boyfriend somewhat yelled at the ER staff. They came over to get me and I couldn't even walk. The nurse said, "Well, are you coming back?" My boyfriend said, "Get her a ducking wheelchair." 6 hours and a round of morphine later I passed the stone. The nurse said, "Oh, look at that, it was a kidney stone." Like seriously, WTF. Not a doctor or a nurse, but back in the early 80s my mum, 30 at the time, could not convince several doctors that she had breast cancer. It was different to just a lump or pain. They all responded with "You're too young." Finally got one doctor to write a referral to a specialist so she would shut up about it. She had breast cancer. Was told she may need a mastectomy, but after going in they were able to remove enough without having to go that far. She went back to the original doctor and had a go at him and said if she ever heard his name come up for malpractice in the future she would make a statement against him. She was in medical industry. Told him to never tell a woman she was too young for breast cancer. Not the doctor, but I went in because I had shingles. Told them up front I thought it was shingles. The doctor kind of chuckles and she says, "Well, you are far too young to have shingles. It's impossible." So I lifted my shirt and showed her my side where it was, and I instantly saw her eyes widened as she goes, "Oh my, that is definitely shingles." The doctor and nurses were a little sheepish and apologetic, but they did a great job helping me get better. I was the youngest case they'd ever seen, early 20s at the time. My mom went to the doctor's, complaint about a pain in her lower back by her kidney. The doctor did a quick checkup and told her it was nothing, that she was probably just sleeping wrong. My mom mentioned cancer and the doctor said that it wasn't very likely because people with kidney cancer don't usually feel anything. She was adamant that something was wrong, so she went to another doctor that told her the same thing, but said he would run some tests to show her that it wasn't cancer. When the results came back from the test, it turned out she did in fact have cancer on one of her kidneys, and because she caught at such an early stage, they were able to remove it before it spread. Patient here got into a car wreck and right arm started going numb a few weeks later. Self-diagnosed as disc pressing on spinal cord. Requested they do an MRI. Doctor said to take more painkillers and it would go away. I don't like drugs so I insisted. Footed bill for MRI that insurance wouldn't cover because I requested it against doctor's wishes. Bulging disc on C5 or 6. 7 months of PT and other non-painkiller drugs. Arm works again. Duck insurance. Duck doctors that push painkillers. Nearly done with the debt hole that entire debacle put me into. Obligatory. Not a doctor. I had a lumbar puncture done 2 years ago that got me a CSF leak. I had that leak for 8 months. The doctor that was responsible told me that it's impossible. Your leak must have sealed. I took matters in my own hands and wrote a letter to the neuro department at my local hospital basically laying down my thoughts and telling them I strongly believed I still had a leak after 8 months. They took me in and treated it. It doesn't end quite there though. After treatment I developed what is thought to be RIH, rebound high pressure. This is a newly researched phenomenon found in patients that are treated for a CSF leak that have had a leak for a long time. Basically your symptoms switch from low pressure to high pressure. I had to research this on my own as well and referenced some articles to my neurologist. My neuro then said, "Wow, we have never heard or seen anything like this before, but the articles you show me are written by respectable experts in the area and published in very good journals, so let's try to treat it." Now I'm being treated for RIH with Diamox, which seems to be slowly working. So I had to basically self-diagnose twice. It is honestly not fun. It is exhausting and stressful, but you have to do what you have to do. I've made sure to read highly cited research and then bring this forward to my doctors and hear what they have to say. Not a doctor, but when I was in early grade school I had an accident on a trampoline and thought that I broke my knee. We rushed to urgent care and they said that I was just bruised. The following week, still in pet and running and doing sports. My knee still hurt and we went to the doctor again, not urgent care, and I fractured my femur right above my knee and had to be on crutches for 2 months. Also, the second time I got a concussion I was rushed to urgent care and they said it was a migraine. I knew I had a concussion and so did my family. I ended up taking 1.5 months out of school and did part-time for another month. I don't trust urgent care. My mom was the diagnosee here. She had a co-worker come to work with an active shingles rash a few years back. Mom was never vaccinated for chickenpox, nor did she ever catch it in her youth. A few weeks after this co-worker decides to show up with live shingles, my mom starts developing this awful rash with, why no, lots of little sores. Perhaps one may even call them pox. Who would have guessed? Along with fever, body aches, the whole kit and caboodle. Mom went to the doctor and said I have chickenpox, and the doctor took one look at her rash and said you're too old to have chickenpox. It must be some other thing. I'm sending you to the ER. One very expensive ER visit and a nearly ruined Thanksgiving dinner later, lo and behold, she had chickenpox. We no longer see this doctor. As is tradition in these threads, I'm not a doctor or even the person who was diagnosed. My dad has Parkinson's, but getting it recognized was a slog and a half. One of the big obstacles was that he already had other health issues, so any doctor he went to said oh it's from that, or oh it's from the medication used to treat that. Much as I love the NHS, one of the issues it has is that people tend to be seen as their condition rather than as people. So if you've got cancer then you become a cancer case. In the end it took a few years to get a proper diagnosis and for him to get the medication he needs. What surprised me after that though was that all the other people in the support group had same story. Possibly because it tends to hit people later in life when they have other stuff symptoms can be blamed on. I wasn't going to post since I'm the patient, not the doctor, but I have a complicated medical history and all of it I've had to research myself. I have a genetic connective tissue disorder, hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, so joint pain my whole life which I assumed everyone had to deal with since I was always brushed off. Orthostatic hypertension, so I constantly hear with that blood pressure you'll live forever. And I think, or reply it would be nice if I could stand up for more than a few minutes at a time, though. I thought I was a hypochondriac most of my life, until I caught myself and said out loud right, I shouldn't kneel like that. I might dislocate my knee again in front of someone who had EDS and they asked if I had it. Eventually I researched and then pushed for a diagnosis. Ended up having to go out of state to a specialist because no one here was willing to say I had it, even though the evidence was where they would treat me like I did, but weren't comfortable writing it down. I'm almost 35 and my quality of life is that of a geriatric. If it had been caught sooner, if insurance would cover continuous physical therapy for people like me, maybe I wouldn't be where I am. I also want to go back through my laundry list of doctors who brushed me off and tell them to pay attention. The obligatory not the doctor but the patient. I've known since I was in high school I had polycystic ovarian syndrome. I started having cycles when I was 11 that hadn't regulated by the time I was 16. Incredibly easy to gain, hard to lose weight, an abundance of facial and body hair, terrible mood swings and depression along with a few other symptoms. Whenever I brought it up to doctors it was always dismissed like nothing was wrong. Finally I went an entire year without a period. Found a new doctor. Since it's covered times the first meeting we had was a phone meeting. I told her straight up it's either PCOS or premature menopause. I started having hot flashes along with migraines and light or sound sensitivities. She didn't question me. First doctor to ever tell me it sounds like I'm right and immediately ordered all my testing and such. Lo and behold I have PCOS. Had it from day one. Pre-diabetic due to it, but have enough time to get back to a safe zone. Getting treatment for cancer prevention, since I'm at a higher risk for certain ones thanks to hormones.